first impression that comes to our mind about any college: tall buildings, big classrooms, large lobby areas, thick books, IT labs, assignments, class tests, and projects. Nothing besides that. Every hour, minute, second spent here help us carving and shaping our persona, cultivating innovative mindsets for the challenging world. Learning is a lifelong process. Sharing knowledge, inculcating values of life, spark the innovative horizons of mind. Fun and frolic is the nature of every nook and corner here. A daily dose of thrill we are sure to get here.
Good morning, everyone. I am Manmeet Kaur, Assistant Professor DME at DME Media School. Welcome you all to the Session Orientation Program 2021. For the second consecutive year, DME Media School is organizing this program with the motive of aspiring students about their subjects in the upcoming semester and also to prepare them for a career in those particular fields. This year's Session Orientation Program 2021 is conducted under the theme Contemporary Media Scenario, Challenges and Opportunities. I'm glad to see my students of DME Media School keeping their morale high despite of the unforeseen hardships. And we welcome you to the new semester as well as for today's session about the film appreciation. Today's session is about film appreciation, and the expert for the day is Mr. Murtaza Ali Khan. He will be speaking on the topic, how to break down a film. Before that, I invite Dr. Amri Saxena, Dean DME Media School, to shed some light on the theme and the purpose of this program, and also to welcome our expert of the day, Mr. Murtaza Ali Khan.
Thank you, Manmeet. So I welcome Mr. Murtaza Ali Khan for this particular session. And this whole session orientation program, as we conceived it last year and as we try to expand it this year, the whole objective behind is that it's a departure from whatever conventional practices are there in an educational institution. Normally what happens whenever a new batch is joining, then the orientation program is organized. But the kind of syllabus that we have and the kind of input that is expected from us in a program of BAJMC, wherein there are different papers in different semesters and students grow year to year, then we feel that there is a need to constantly orient the students, and then orientation and reorientation, and then they have to be recharged with new things happening in the media sector, particularly the papers that they study in different semesters. And in the third and the fifth semester, since these are the two batches which have started their classes last week, so it's a bit delayed because normally our classes starts on 1st of August, but since last year everything has gone into the doldrums, so that is how we are starting this session about 2 weeks late. So last week we decided to have this, from last week we decided to have this program. So in 2020, we had just 1 week session orientation program, which was divided into two. One, the orientation by the subject teachers, and another orientation by the subject experts drawn from the industry and media academic. This year, we divided it to 2 weeks. So last year, the internal orientation happened, and from Monday onwards, on 23rd, onwards, we started this orientation program. And also, if I can tell you the external expert, we have the elective subjects as well in the third semester and the fifth semester. So this particular paper, this film appreciation, this is one elective and the other is the digital media marketing. Now, students have to choose which paper they want to study. And since we have a strength of 180, this intake is 180, so there are almost 180 students in this batch. And majority of them have taken this digital media marketing, but then those who feel passionate about films and all, so obviously they are more keen into these areas. And there are other allied subjects as well, like there's a video editing, which is in the third semester. And then, I mean, a lot of this light and sound, I mean, all these papers are there. So if we put all these papers together, then obviously there is a lot of interest among the students. Even then, they might not be choosing this elective paper to shoot their films and to make their films. And at least everybody is in India, everybody has a fascination for films, and every second person, if not everybody, every second person is a film lover. So this film appreciation gives you an insight how to understand the films in a better manner and how to appreciate the films, looking into all compartments of films. So that is how we decided to invite one such person who has an expertise in all such areas, and wherein his knowledge, his understanding can further be imparted to the students, and the students can learn the nuances of not only the filmmaking, but how to understand the film, how to appreciate the film. So I once again welcome Mr. Murtaza to this session, and we are looking forward that something good, something interesting will emerge from this session. Thank you all. Over to you, Manmeet.
Thank you so much, sir. We also have with us today Professor Dr. Suspita Bala, Head of the Department, DME Media School. I welcome you, ma'am, to this session orientation program for film appreciation. Now, I would like to introduce our expert of the day, Mr. Murtaza Ali Khan, an award-winning film and TV critic, journalist, and radio TV panelist. He was awarded the prestigious Shri Krishna Gopal Vicharia Memorial Journalism Award in the year 2020. At present, he is film editor for Cafe Dicensus, New York. He has also been contributing to the publications like The Hindu, The Sunday Guardian, News Laundry, The Daily Guardian, The Patriot, Huffington Post, and The Quint. As a mass communication professional and trained filmmaker, Sir frequently conducts workshops on film journalism, digital filmmaking, and screenwriting. He has made over 300 appearances in national television as a cinema expert and conducted over 200 exclusive celebrity interviews, which has been published in leading publications. Sir, we are honored to have you with us today. Please enlighten our gathering. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Manmeet, and thank you so much to the DME team and everybody who has welcomed me here. And I'm really honored and privileged to be a part of such an august gathering, and I'm looking forward to the session. So I hope everybody is in, and I can start. Perfect. So to begin with, this is for the next 5 minutes or so, I want to have an open house of sorts. And before I go to this presentation, I want to understand from each of the bright young colleagues of ours that have joined us for this session, what are your queries? Like, what do you understand when you watch a film? And what is it that you have in mind, with regards to this particular session? Is there any specific you would like me to touch upon? Do you have any favorites? It's an open house, so anybody can chip in, give your ideas, ask you questions, and then obviously we'll have a Q&A at the end also. But I wanted to start off with a quick open house sort of a thing, because my sessions are usually more like very interactive. It's not a monologue, and the subject also demands that. So anybody can throw any question, any query, any observation. I'm open to hearing you out and exploring it further.
Students, you can put your queries or any idea, any perspective in the
any
chat
question,
box.
any observation.
Then we will be taking up one by one.
All right. So in the meantime, the queries come in. In the meantime, the observations come in. I think we can start with the presentation. So when Professor Saab contacted me and he said that film appreciation, I got really excited because it's something that, I have always taken keen interest in. But what is film appreciation? A lot of the people confuse film appreciation with film criticism, with film reviewing. These are different disciplines. And even though we need not go into the nuances, let me tell you that film appreciation is more comprehensive, in how it is. Criticism is more about, trying to critique a film, trying to critically analyze different aspects of it. And reviewing is just about watching a film, watching a series and giving you views on that. But film appreciation is a much larger discipline, which covers, different aspects of cinema, which introduces you to world cinema, which introduces you to the masters of world cinema, which delves into the ideas of film theory. You talk about different technical aspects of cinema grammar. So it's a very comprehensive subject. And I was going through your syllabus. I'm very happy that it's very comprehensive in a way. We have film movements in there. We have a lot of stuff about the masters of cinema. We have techniques in there. But for the first session, what I wanted to do was to introduce you to the very art of how do you watch a film, how do you break a film, because unless you understand the structure of a film, it's very difficult to go any further. Because if you don't read a film well, if you don't understand its shape and structure, how are you supposed to do an appreciation of that? How are you supposed to critique it? How are you supposed to review it? So a whole history out there. And speaking of the advent of sound, why not talk about the advent of movies? It all started with Dada Saheb Phalke and Raja Harishchandra. That was actually a Marathi filmmaker. That was a Marathi film. So you can very well imagine our origins, our cinematic origins are also pretty regional. It all started with a Marathi film, Raja Harishchandra. And with VFX, you have to understand that VFX also, have evolved, over a period of time. Prior to that, there were always special effects used in cinema, but they were used, through other means, miniature. There were practical effects that they were put in. There were always these stunt guys doing something amazing in the action space. But with the advent of computer technologies, we all saw how it evolved. In fact, I personally feel that some of the best special effects that we have seen has come from the regional industry. If you take the case of Ika, The Fly, which was a film that S.S. Rajamouli made well before Bahubali, and you look at the special effects, the VFX in that film, it's really the next level. I don't think that Bollywood has done anything even remotely nearby. Yes, there is Ravan and there is a lot of good stuff, to speak about, but I would say that the best VFX has come from the Telugu industry. It has come from Tamil industry. If you talk of a film like Indran with Rajnikant, I was amazed by the VFX that I saw in that film. Robo, it was released as in English. So I agree that the evolution of VFX has been really, really instrumental as far as the regional industries are concerned. And I somewhere feel that the Bollywood needs to play a catching game, and it has been doing that for a very long time now, because the regional industries have been showing us the way. And as I said, even our cinematic origins are rooted in regional cinema, with Dada Saheb Phalke making this film Raja Harishchandra in 1913. So it's been more than 100 years now. So, but more than that, I think this subject calls for a very prolonged discussion. It deserves a session of its own. So I won't go any further in that direction, because then I will have to steer away completely from what we have at hand. I hope I have answered your question in a way that it has made you even more curious, probably for a later session which we can have on this subject. I hope that was the only question that we had.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So now that I've given you a quick introduction, and I think that question was also amazing, and we have also touched a little bit upon the regional aspects of our very rich, because when we speak of Indian cinema, it's not just Bollywood. There are so many regional industries. There is Odia cinema. There is amazing cinema happening in the Northeast. We have seen how Village Rockstars, Reema Das, Janu Barua, there have been some big legends, in the Northeast side of the country who have made amazing films. So whenever we talk of Indian cinema, we have to take into account all these regional industries. If we mistake Bollywood for Indian cinema, then I think we are doing a great disservice. And when we speak of Indian cinema, the non-fiction filmmakers also come in. We have had some great documentary filmmakers, non-fiction filmmakers over the years. So Indian cinema is again a very comprehensive term, like film appreciation is. So you have to keep that in mind, that Indian cinema is like the superset of everything. Bollywood is a part of it, obviously. Then these regional industries are a part of it. Non-fiction, everything, everything is a part of that when we speak of Indian cinema. So going to the slide finally, as you can see some of these terms out there, and I have already told you that without understanding these terms, it would be very difficult for you to understand film, understand the cinematic medium. So I think all of you must be knowing what composition is. Many of you would be doing photography, and some of you, would have definitely heard of this term, composition. So composition is nothing but what is there within the frame. We all have this rectangular frame, whether we are capturing it through a mobile phone, whether we are capturing through, a DSLR, whether we are using any film camera, whether we are using any, modern digital camera, Red, or Alexa or whatever. Composition, the idea of composition is what is within the frame. So it is the arrangement of elements with regards to the borders of the frame. So whatever you arrange within those four borders and how you arrange is what composition is all about. You would have seen, older directors, people like Subhash Ghai doing this. So this is what your frame is. Whatever comes within this frame and how it is arranged within with respect to each other, that is composition. So how we arrange our frame, how do we compose that frame is what composition is all about. You would have done it a lot in photography, I'm sure, because you have to make a good frame before capturing, what you want to capture. It could be a still image, it could be a moving object. Inevitably, you have to have this composition. You have to decide your frame. Even while you are using a mobile phone, you decide on a frame. So that is all composition is all about. But within the frame, you have to change the subjects, with regards to each other. Say there's a frame in which there is, two people. So you have to arrange them with regards to each other. You have to, somebody would be on the right, somebody would be on the left. There would be a prop. There would be, some other objects. There would be a background. There would be a foreground. So everything comes in that, four borders. And that is what composition is all about. Now, composition is also described as, there's a French term for it, which is called mise en scène. So it is M-I-S-E-E-N-E-S-E-N-E, but it's pronounced as mise en scène because it's a French word and that is the right. You don't call it mise en scène, it's mise en scène. And that is nothing but composition when we talk of a still image. But when we talk of a moving image, what is the video? So typically, a moving image has got 24 frames per second. This is the elementary level of stuff, because when you see this video, that is nothing but these are actually images moving one after the other. If you would have seen a good old film, so you would see that it moves. So you have to move that, and then it moves at the speed of 24 frames per second. Speed may vary. There are other speed frame rates that have come in, but the most popular frame rate is 24 frames per second. So basically every second there are 24 images that you see flashing in front of your eyes. That's why you get this illusion of a moving picture. That's why it feels that it's a video. So it's not actually a video, technically speaking. It's 24 images that you see within 1 second. So it's moving so fast that our eye gives an illusion of motion when it's actually the still picture which is moving, but you get an illusion that you are watching a video. So this is the very essence of cinema. This is the very essence of motion picture, that these are actually moving images. So still image, that is one still image. You put 24 still images and you move it in such a manner that you see 24 still images one after the other within 1 second. That's our motion picture. So when we talk of the motion picture and when we talk of composition in a motion picture, then mise en scène become very important, because mise en scène also takes care of the choreographic movements. Because obviously when we are talking of a motion picture, things are not always stationary. Subjects will be moving. Say at 32nd point A is at is at a given point A, but at the 42nd point A may be at a given point B. So this movement from A to B needs to be understood as while you are composing your sequence. Say I ask you that make a 1 minute film of me going from point A to point B. So you will have to have a proper plan in place that, okay, I will start at A and then I will move towards B. How would I move towards B? Would I walk in a straight line? Would I go in a semicircular fashion? Would I go in a zigzag fashion? So everything would be worked out. You are the filmmaker. You will tell me that, sir, this is how I want you to travel from A to B. And everything would be decided that, okay, at 30-second mark, I am at point B. At 35-second mark, I am at a certain place between A and B, and everything would be decided. Would it be a curvy path? Would it be a straight path? Would it be a zigzag path? And then when you put the camera, you are already aware of these choreographic movements that's going to happen. So when I speak of mise en scène, it covers everything. It's not just the composition, it's also these choreographic movements. Because when I say choreography, a lot of people mistake it for dance. Action can be a choreographed, everything. A scene can be a choreographed. So choreography doesn't necessarily mean a dance sequence or a song sequence. It can be a fight sequence. It can be, anything. It can be a simple movement of a person walking from A to B. But how does he do that? How does she do that? How does how does an individual who is supposed to do a certain scene, say there's a film with Aishwarya Rai in it, and Aishwarya Rai is supposed to walk from a place, miss say suppose she's supposed to walk from her home to the police station. So obviously there would be certain paths. She will have to take a right at some place, then she would have to take a left, and if the place is far off, then she might take a car. If it's nearby, she may just walk. So you have to decide that how would she, what is the path, you should be clear about that, and how would she go about, and then you have to capture that. And that's when mise-en-scène comes into picture, because you have to be aware of everything. Okay, that at the 30-second mark, she steps out of her house, then she takes a left, then she takes a right, then she goes straight, then she takes a U-turn, so you have to be aware of everything that she does from A to B, and that's how you choreograph it. Everything is choreographed. You, as a filmmaker, you are supposed to tell Aishwarya Rai that, okay, at this moment in time, you have to take a U-turn, then you have to take a right, then you have to take because you have capturing it on the camera at the end of the day. If you're not aware where Aishwarya Rai is set, say at the 40-minute mark, or say at the 45 mark, then how would you be able to capture it? That's why we use mise-en-scène in terms of the motion picture. And when we speak of composition, it's just the arrangement of elements. But when we talk of mise-en-scène in terms of the motion picture, it's not just the arrangement of elements, it's also these choreographic movements. So this is very important. You have to keep in mind, mise-en-scène is nothing but composition. It can be used for a still image also. It can be used for a moving image also. But when you're using mise-en-scène for a moving image, then it's not just the arrangement of elements, because frame will keep on changing. Say you have decided that this is a frame at the 30-second mark, but since Aishwarya Rai is going to move out of this frame, so your camera would also move accordingly. So that is what mise-en-scène is all about. For the next 30 seconds, or for the duration of the entire sequence, the camera will move accordingly how Aishwarya Rai is moving, in that walk that she is taking from her home to the police station. So choreographic movements become very important. So you have to arrange her, and you also have to take care of her movements. And that is what mise-en-scène is all about. Any doubts, any queries about mise-en-scène, you can type in keen. We will take it maybe in between or maybe towards the end. Coming on to camera movements. As important as composition is, you should also understand that, here camera also moves, not just the subject. We have all talked about the movements of Aishwarya Rai while she's moving from her house to the police station. That has been taken care of. But what about the camera movements? Camera will also move. But what are the different camera movements that we have? I also have a small video for you, but before the video, let me give you a quick, brief of what it is all about. So the most basic form of camera movement is this horizontal movement of the camera, across the x-axis. You know what all x-axis is? If you don't know, just think of it as this horizontal line. So this movement of the camera. So this is called pan. Horizontal movement of the camera, or the movement of the camera along the x-axis or the horizontal axis, it is called pan. Pan left, pan left. If the movement is towards the left, it is pan left. If it is towards the right, it is pan right. So this is very obvious. Write it down. P-A-N, pan. Pan left, pan right. Movement around the horizontal axis. We call it pan. Why do we call it pan? Because it's a technical term that we use. So in a screenplay, or if you read it in a review somewhere, they won't say that, okay, the camera moved towards the left, the camera moved to the right. They would use the technical term. The camera panned left, the camera panned right. So you need to be thorough with this word pan. Otherwise, you may get confused. And then how would you do a film appreciation if you don't understand what a pan is? So this is the most basic form of movement. The other basic form of movement is obviously the movement along the y-axis, which is the vertical axis. So this is called tilt. So you don't say, oh, move the camera upwards or move the camera downwards. You say tilt up, tilt down. So you move the camera up, it's tilt up. You move the camera downwards, it's tilt down. So two movements, pan left, pan right, tilt up, tilt down. Any doubts, you can key in. I'll also show you the video. Then there is another kind of movement, which is called a track. In track, what happens is that you have two rails in place, or you can, have something on which the camera can slide with the wheels. So you put the camera on a trolley or something, and it's like, as is the case with the railway engine. On these two tracks, the railway engine and the, bogies move. Similarly, you put a camera on something and you put it on these two rails and you move it along those rails. So that is called track. So basically the camera will move with the subject. Say I am walking from A to B, so the camera will follow me like this. So this is the track. It can follow me like this also, it can follow me like this also. But when I say like this, then it becomes dolly. When it's in the z-axis, this, because I've already told x-axis, y-axis, this is the z-axis, which is basically going into the frame. That is dolly in, and when it's coming out, it's dolly out. So three movements I've told you, and obviously track, because it's an equipment on which you put the camera so that it can move along, that is track. But when this track movements happens inwards, like in the z-axis, we call it dolly in, dolly out. These are the three basic kinds of camera moves. Now, can we play that video in which we talk about the camera movements?
Sir, there is, we also have a question.
All right, let's see the question first.
Yes, sir. So one of our students is asking how drones have changed the face of camera movements in contemporary cinema.
Great question. Before I wanted to come to the drones, I wanted to take you to the basics, but now that you asked the question, let me tell you that there's nothing new, in terms of the visuals that drone offer, because we always had the helicopter, Stanley Kubrick, a lot of great filmmakers used to use helicopter, and it practically had the same effect. But what drone has done is that it has made it easy, because not everybody can afford an helicopter. I'm talking about an independent film. I'm talking about, a student film. So drone has made it easier. And also drone allows for these low angle air shots, because helicopter had to be at a certain elevation. So it cannot come beyond that. And also you need permission for helicopters. You need a lot of money. There are a lot of technicalities involved. With drone, it's relatively easy. I'm not saying that you don't need a permission for drone. You need permission for drones also. But you can, bring drone to, maybe even very close to the ground. So that way drone offers a whole new, horizon, whole new perspective for filmmaking. Now I've seen filmmakers used it for very low angle shots, eye level shots, wherein they use a circular shot for drone. And drone has also made single take sequences relatively easier. I'll talk about the long take and the single take. If some of you would have seen the second season of Family Man, the Family Man 2. So they have very cleverly used single take sequences using drones, because when you are going from one position to another, drone gives you that space. You can quickly, because they can gain elevation and they can lose elevation very quickly. So within no time, you can go upward and you can come down, which wasn't very easy with the helicopter. With the helicopter, it requires a certain time to go up and come down. So everything was very slow. But aesthetics were always there. We always had this. And we always had the crane shot, which practically also offered something similar to what drone is offering, top view. And top view has many, it has many pros and it has many cons. Obviously, pros are that it looks very cinematic. It gives you a 360-degree view of the place where you are. But there's also a trick. There's also the other side, a problem side to it, because you get exposed also. Say you have certain equipment, say you have certain, cars parked there, you have certain, houses that doesn't fit in the scheme of things. So that becomes a problem, because now you're showing the thing from a 360-degree point of view, and you can only show certain parts of it. Maybe the other parts, there could be, a slum just beside it, or there could be, some modern building beside it, and you are doing a film that's set in the 19th century, and suddenly there is, a big factory out here. So how would you do it? So that becomes a problem using a drone. But then VFX allows you to do certain things. Say you show something from a drone and you need to take it out. So in post, using VFX techniques, you can take them out also. You can reconstruct also. So yes, a lot of new horizons have opened up using drone. And when you combine it with the VFX technologies, then sky's the limit. So as you saw, I already told you about 3 and plus track, and you saw some more movements in here. The most complex, obviously, is the dolly zoom. I hope everybody understands zoom. We all do that, on our camera digitally. We pinch it and, we zoom. Basically, zoom crops the image. Zoom is nothing but cropping the image. You basically say if this is what you are capturing, but when you zoom in, you only capture this and you only capture this. So that actually crops the image. So that the effect is very similar to what dolly is doing, because in dolly also you are getting closer to the object. But when you use the combination of dolly and zoom in opposite manners, so you are zooming in and you are dollying out. So that creates that dolly effect wala thing which you saw in that football goalpost which you saw. Or you can do it otherwise also. You can probably zoom out and dolly in. So you will always be using the opposites. Either dolly in, so basically you practically move your camera towards, into the screen or into the frame, and you zoom out. So that effect is created. Or you do it the other way around. You bring the camera outwards and you zoom in. So you will get that effect. And that effect is also called the vertigo effect. So dolly zoom is also called the vertigo effect because it was used for the first time in the 1958 Alfred Hitchcock film called Vertigo. You can note it down. Dolly zoom, DOLLYZOOM, which we saw in that video, is also called as the vertigo effect, VERTIGO. Vertigo is a 1958 film by Alfred Hitchcock, and it's called the vertigo effect because it was used for the first time in that film. There was a guy who was scared of heights, so he had this condition called vertigo, and Hitchcock wanted to take you into his mind that how does he feel when he goes to these, higher places, and what is the illusion and what is the fear. So he wanted to take you in his, in his mind, in his POV. So he uses this dolly zoom to create that, dazzling, dizzying sort of an effect. Though these days, dolly zoom is used for so many things. When we have a detailed session on camera movements, I will show you examples. I'll show you, different, or you can, in the meantime, you can Google it, YouTube it, and see for yourself how beautifully, it was used in Raging Bull by Martin Scorsese, and we have already discussed Vertigo. So these days also it's used in many ways. A lot of Indian people are also using it now because they are coming from students like you. When they go from the film school to the professional field, they also want to use what they did in the class, because it's not just about theory. You need to go out and express yourself. So now that I've told you about dolly zoom, I'm sure if you ever make a video, if you ever do, you will definitely put it into effect. And the other was quite easy, circular arc, follow, and everything. So I hope the camera movements thing is clear. But still, if you have doubts, you can key in your doubts, and we can take it at the end. So moving on, as I already told you at the very beginning of this session, that sound is probably one of the most important things that we have in the audiovisual medium, because even though the picture, we only see this is what we see at one point in time. We don't see what is at our back. We have to move our neck. So when you're watching a film, this is what you are seeing. But sound is surrounding you from all sides. Sound can say, if there's a horror film, the sound can come from the behind of your head. It can come from the top of your head. It can come from here. It can come from there. The sound surrounds you from 360 degrees, all sides. That's why sound is so powerful. And in horror films, we have seen, and in dramatic scenes, we have seen, in dramatic films, we have seen how sound can be used to some great, revolutions, to create some great, amazing sensory experiences. So when we speak of sound in film, basically we talk it in two terms. One is the diegetic sound. The other is the non-diegetic sound. So diegetic basically comes from the word diegesis. Diegesis is basically universe. So diegetic sound is that sound which is part of the universe of the film. And non-diegetic sound is a sound which is not a part of the universe of the film. So when I say diegetic sound, it includes the dialogues, it includes the conversations, it includes the natural sound effects. Say there's a car and car is moving, so the sound effect of the car, or say if I'm hammering something, that sound, that all will come in the diegetic sound, because all that is part of the universe, and all our characters can hear it, all our characters can listen to it. So that's why it's diegetic sound. But non-diegetic is that sound which is actually not a part of the world of the film, but it is for the viewers. Say background music, say dishum dishum sound in our films. That dishum sound is not heard when Amitabh Bachchan is, fighting with Shatrughan Sinha in Bombay to Goa, but we hear that dishum dishum sound. When Amitabh Bachchan is beating 14 gundas, we hear that dishum dishum sound. But Amitabh Bachchan and those gundas are not hearing that dishum dishum sound. Similarly, background music, we have seen in films. So many voiceovers, voiceovers when we hear, but when that voiceover has nothing to do with the characters at hand. Sometimes that voiceovers are spoken by the characters themselves. Then it's diegetic because the character is a part of that film. But when the voiceover is spoken, like at the beginning of Lagan, Amitabh Bachchan's voice is there, he takes you. So that's not diegetic, that's non-diegetic, because that's not a part of the film. The characters are not listening to it, that once upon a time in India, there was a village where this happened. So that's non-diegetic. So I hope everybody is thorough with what is diegetic and what is non-diegetic. Still, if you have any queries, you can always, send them across and we will take it towards the end. The next part, in the slide is obviously the editing. And editing, I hope you all know, is a very important part of the audio-visual scheme of things, because you are splicing different things together. You are constantly doing that. You are connecting different things. That's how you make a film, huh? As you would have seen in your films, in your series, there are different things that are happening. So how do you splice it together? You do it through editing. And in editing, there is montage wherein you do fast cutting. You have these smaller bits and you cut it, and you put it all together. So if you want to show a lot of things, say you want to show a child, growing up overnight. There's a child who is, 5 years old and suddenly he grows up into, say, Dharmendra, or he grows up into Rajesh Khanna, he grows up into Shah Rukh Khan, he goes up into Ritik Roshan. So you use montage. You quickly, you use certain sequences, cut, and you are splicing it together, and you suddenly see that this 5-year-old child is now Ritik Roshan, or this 5-year-old child is now, Ayushman Khurrana, or whatever. So you use montage for that. So you are editing very, 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 very fast, and you are joining those small bits together, and you create this effect. And this is what montage is all about. So fast editing is what montage, and long takes is when you are not editing as much. You are using long takes. You are shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting. You are not cutting. You are just following the subject. You are following them. Keep on following them. You keep on following them, and then you put it together. So montage, I think everybody has seen it in movies. You know what it is. If you want to show somebody growing up, if you want to show what happened during a whole day, you do it in a second, say 10 seconds, 15 seconds. So quickly in songs, a lot of song sequence use montage. A lot of trailers that we have, modern day trailers that we have, they use montage, because you see a lot of things happening quickly. So you cannot have a trailer of a film made, you cannot have a music video made using montage. But long take was done without any takes. They followed those characters, from down there. They followed them all the way to those alleys, through the elevator, to the room, up on the roof, and how it all ended. So that's what a long take is. And you all have seen what montage is. I've already told you. You see in movies, you see in songs, a lot of things happening. Day passing very quickly. Years passing off very quickly. A child growing into an elder Amitabh Bachchan or an older Shah Rukh Khan. So that's what montage does. And this is the exact opposite. So editing, I've shown you two types. When you do it in a very fast way, that's the montage. When you do it using long takes, that's pretty slow. And then you combine these scenes together. So I think this is the basics. I wanted you to give you an idea, to have an idea about these things, so that you are on the same page once you start with this film appreciation module. And I hope more and more of you opt for it, because it's a great way of opening yourself to the whole world of cinema. There's so much to be learned. There's so much to be understood. And film appreciation can be a great way of getting started with this journey with cinema. So I think we can move on to the next slide, ma'am. I'm going a little fast because I know a lot needs to be covered. So the topic that we had discussed was how to break a film. So now we are coming to the business part of it. So we use the 3x structure to break a film. How do you break down a film? Every film typically, and I'm not just talking about films of today. I'm taking you back to the Greek theater 5,000 years ago. They all had a beginning, they all had a middle, they all had a end, because and you end it somewhere, and there is also a middle somewhere. So that's why we call it the 3x structure. There is a beginning, there's a middle, and there is an ending to it. And this is not something new. This has been happening right from the days of the Greek theater 5,000 years back. Even when storytelling began, people back then knew that a story needs to be told in parts. It cannot be told without any structure. It cannot spiral in circle, because if it does, then the viewer will, or the listener will, lose interest, and she may step out, walk away, or fall asleep. You need to engage the viewer. That's very important, and that's why the idea of a 3x structure becomes very important. Can we go to the next slide? So as the name says, 3x structure, there are 3 acts: the first act, the second act, and the third act. First act is also known as setup, because we are setting up the things. So you set up the character's world, you set up the different relationships that a character has. Say a story is set up in Delhi, there's a boy, there's a girl, there's a family out there. So everything gets introduced. Okay, this boy or this girl lives in Delhi. She goes to office every day. She's living with her parents. This is her best friend. This is her, this is the girl that she hates. This is the boss. This is the colleague. So everything. So this is where it happens. That is called the first act. So typically, first act takes 1/4 of the total duration of a film. Say it's a 2-hour film, then the first act will take 1/4 of those 2 hours, which is 30 minutes. So typically in a 2-hour film, the first act will comprise those 30 minutes. So in those 30 minutes, you have to introduce the boy or the girl, her world, her relations, and everything. So everything gets set up. As a viewer, you know everything about her by the 30-minute mark. And once that thing is done, you move on to the second act, which is the confrontation. Now the conflict starts. Now the collision starts. Okay, this girl has a dream. She wants to, work for the NASA one day, and she has this dream. What is she doing to fulfill this dream? Okay, she wants to enroll for a course in aeronautical engineering. But what are the obstacles? Her family wants her to get married, to this Sharma ji ka ladka. But then what about her dreams? She cannot afford to, let go of her dreams. So there's a conflict. Parents want her to marry this guy, this good-looking guy, this well-earning guy, but she wants to go to NASA and she wants to become a space scientist like Sunita Williams, like Kalpana Chawla. So there's this big conflict. What would she do? How would she convince her parents? How she would be in a position to equip herself to be, a worthy candidate for NASA. So all this will become a part of the second act, and that's why we call it confrontation, because she's constantly confronting people around her. She is confronting her own psyche. She is confronting her own ego. She is channelizing her inner thoughts. She is channelizing her inner feelings. There's constant doubt. She is asking herself, am I even worthy enough to work for NASA? Can I do it? Can I challenge my parents? What would I do if I get married to this guy? Will this guy be understanding enough? Will he allow me to study space science after I marry him? So there are a lot of questions, a lot of confrontations happening. So all this happens in the second act, and this usually takes 1/2 of the film length. So 2-hour film, first half an hour is for the first act, and then when I said half of the film, so another half hour, because 2-hour films ka आधा हो गया 1 घंटा. So half an hour for the first act, then 1 hour for the second act. So अब हमारा 1.5 घंटा हो गया. So we are done with 1.5 hours. What's left is the third act. That again is half an hour, so 1/4. So याद रखना, always remember this, that the first act will always be 1/4 of the total duration of the film. Second act will be 1/2 of the duration of the film, and third act will be 1/4 of the total duration of the film. So 3 घंटे की अगर फिल्म है, तो पहला एक्ट कितने का होगा? पहला एक्ट होगा 3 घंटा यानी कि 180 मिनट्स, उसका आधा 90 minutes, uska aadha 45. So first act of a 3-hour film will be 45 minutes. Second act will be 90 minutes. Then again the third act will be 45 minutes. तो हो गया ना 180 minutes. तो short film के लिए भी ये चीज apply करती है. अगर 10 मिनट की short film है, if it's a 10-minute short film, then the first act will be 2.5 minutes. The third act will again be 2.5 minutes, and the second act will be 5 minutes. So ये याद रखना है. Again, hard and fast rule नहीं है. 3 मिनट का 3 मिनट 10 सेकंड हो सकता है, आधे घंटे का 40 मिनट हो सकता है, लेकिन यूजली स्टिक करके रखना पड़ता है. हम इंडिया में वी आर अ लिटिल मोर फ्लेक्सिबल. यूएस में, वेस्ट में, हॉलीवुड में दे आर पैरानॉइड अबाउट इट. इधर से उधर भी हो जाता है. दे कंप्लीटली थ्रो अवे द स्क्रिप्ट इन अ डस्टबिन. So you have to religiously follow it. But in India, we are still a little flexible. But we are going there. We are getting a little more, structured. पहले तो 3x structure follow भी नहीं करते थे. पहले तो हमारी films improvisational होती थी. If you look at Sholay, it doesn't follow a 3x structure. But only recently, with students like you, जो पढ़ के आ रहे हैं cinema, coming from film schools, coming from literate backgrounds, they are bringing more awareness to our cinema. Now scripts are following 3x structures. Scripts are more structured because now our content is traveling all around the globe. It's not just made for Indian audiences. So when you are making content for international audiences, it has to follow international standards. As simple as that. That's why 3x structure becomes very important. Can we go to the next slide, please? So I have already told you what happens in the first act. It's the first quarter. It's called the setup. It introduces characters. A primary, secondary, tertiary क्या होते हैं? Primary are the central characters, say the boy or the girl. Secondary are the girls or the boys' friends or family. Tertiary are the other people like Dudwala, Sharma ji, and all that. So primary are the central characters around which the story revolves. Secondary are the relatives or the close friends or something. And tertiary are wo Dudwala, Sharma ji, and Chai wala, Akbar wala, and all that, which creates the whole world. Then it shows the interrelationships, like you get to know the relationship that the girl has with the parents, the relationship that the girl has with her best friend, the relationship with the girl has with her boss, everything. Then places them within a time and place. ये भी पता चलता है हमें कि film कब set है, whether it's set in Bokaro 1970 के, whether it's set in Delhi 2020 का, whether it's set in the US 19th century का. So everything has to be explained within these 30 minutes or the 1/4 जो हमारा time है. 2 घंटे की फिल्म में 30 मिनट होंगे, 3 घंटे की फिल्म में 45 मिनट होंगे, 10 मिनट की शॉर्ट फिल्म में 2.5 मिनट में आपको ये सब बताना पड़ेगा. Then inciting incident is an event that sets the plot in the film. जो motion, ये basically बहुत important part होता है हमारी फिल्म में, कि जो एक धमाकेदार चीज होती है हमारे कैरेक्टर के साथ जिससे उसकी लाइफ बदल जाती है. Probably she gets fired at her office, and what does she do now? Probably her parents announce the start of the conflict and the confrontation जो हम second act में इसको develop करेंगे. So inciting incident वो घटना होती है या दुर्घटना होती है which really set things in motion in our protagonist life. Protagonist जो हमारा main character है, लड़का हो सकता है, लड़की हो सकता है, कोई भी हो सकता है, जिसकी लाइफ में सडनली कुछ ऐसा आ जाए और now what would we do? What would she do? So that is the inciting incident. Can we move to the next? Second act, as I said, आधा होता है या 2/4 बोल सकते हो, या हाफ हो सकता है. Confrontation भी इसे कहते हैं. Obstacles आते हैं रास्ते में. You have to, achieve the dramatic needs. You have to see how he overcomes those obstacles. Will he or she enroll for a course? Will she run away from the house? NASA जाना है तो there is a price that she'll have to pay, ना? She'll have to enroll in a proper course. She'll have to go against her parents' will, or if she decides to get married, will the husband allow her to, follow her dreams, or will the in-laws allow her to follow their dreams? Because there are a lot of complications that come in with marriage. So everything is an obstacle. How you deal it in the story. So when you're watching a film, as somebody who is viewing a film, you have to take all these things into account, because that gives you the key to how would you break a film, how would you break down a film. Say there is something that you don't like a film, so you would say, oh, for me the first act worked really well, the second act was also nice, but the film let me down in the third act. So you have to use these technical terms, because if you want to study cinema, you need to have these terms. Just like you need to know what is pan left, what is pan right, what is tilt up, what is tilt down, what is dolly in, what is dolly out. You should also be thorough with what is first act, what is second act, what is third act, what is inciting incident. And here in this slide, there's a thing called point of no return. Now ये वो चीज होती है, नाम से भी you can easily get कि जहां से you cannot, it's like the Lakshman Rekha of the world of movies. कि जो कदम आपने ले लिया, then you cannot come back. Like the girl, she decides on the day of her wedding that she is not going to get married. She wants to still go to NASA. So she decides to run away from her wedding. Like Happy भाग जाएगी में भी कई बार. पर वहां पे second act में नहीं होता, वहां पे first act में हो जाता है. पर वो depend करता है whether you are telling a story, in the middle of it, and you are using certain flashbacks. As Jean-Luc Godard famously said, that every film has got 3 parts: the beginning, the middle, and the end, but not necessarily in the same order. So beginning, middle, end होता है, पर necessarily same order में नहीं होता. पर अभी क्योंकि मैं बिल्कुल introduce कर रहा हूँ आपको, I'm introducing you to the basics. So I would appreciate you don't think of those non-linear narratives. Nolan को अपने दिमाग से निकाल दो. Just think of a linear structure, A to B to C. Because once you are thorough with it, कहते हैं ना, once you know the rules, only then you can break the rules. That's why I want you to know the rules. Point of no return वो लक्ष्मण रेखा हो गई, वो जो डिसीजन के घर से भागना है, शादी करनी है, it cannot be undone. एक बार घर से भाग गए पेरेंट्स के घर से, वापस नहीं आ सकते. एक बार शादी कर ली, then you are, stuck with those foundations. So that is the point of no return, and that happens right at the middle of the second act. Okay, can we move on? Yes. Third act is the final quarter. Up, everything has happened. Confrontation has happened. Now the final battle, the final climax will happen. Whether she will get selected for NASA. She has run away. She has run away from her parents' house. She has enrolled for a very good aeronautics course. She has sent her application to the NASA. Now it's the big day, the interview. Will she crack the interview? Will she get selected? What will happen? So that is what is called the resolution. That is what is called the climax. That is what is called the moment of truth. The point at which the plot reaches its maximum tension and the forces in opposition confront each other. अब ये real forces भी हो सकती हैं. They can be artificial forces also. Like in the case of Girl, there are no forces as such. कोई और मूवी हो सकती है जिसमें हीरो और विलन की लड़ाई हो रही है एंड में कि वो हीरो विलन में जो जीतेगा, then he will be able to marry the girl he will have. Probably the villain has kidnapped the girl that he wanted to marry, and now he's going to kill the villain in order to retrieve her. So that can be another confrontation. But here the confrontation is more psychological, because the battle is to crack the entrance exams, the battle is to crack the NASA interview. So all that is happening, and ultimately this climax will tell us whether she will have to go back to her home or whether she will go to NASA and she will follow her dream. Then usually the story in a 3 act doesn't end there at the climax. You wind it down. Sometimes you wind it down because you want to set it up for the sequel. We have all seen, that thing happens. Why did Katappa kill Bahubali? So this is sort of a sequel thing, because it's very in vogue to have sequels. So you usually don't end the film at the climax. You settle it down. You leave it towards a little teaser, a sort of a cliffhanger. Or sometimes you don't even want to do that. You just want to take the life back, to where it was, to normalcy. Because when you are listening to a music, so there is always music, it rises, it rises, it rises. It reaches its crescendo when you are listening to some great composer. You are listening to Beethoven, you are listening to Bach, you are listening to Mozart. So they will always start slow. They'll up the tempo, go to the crescendo, and then suddenly they won't end it there. They will wind it down. So this winding it down is called the denouement, which has also been used now cleverly by the filmmakers to set up the things for the next film, which will be the sequel. So the brief period of calm, the winding down at the end of the film, where we basically learn what holds for the future of the characters. So sequel की तैयारी भी हो जाती है, winding down भी हो जाती है, कई बार उसको cliffhangers की तरह भी use किया जाता है. Can we go to the next slide, please? So this is the curve. Whatever I have told you, this graph sums it up. You can clearly see tension on the y-axis. You can see X on the x-axis. So as we go from Act 1 to Act 2, tension is rising. When we going further from Act 2 to Act 3, tension is further rising until after resolution of climax, it comes down, denouement, and it settles here. So you can see there are character conflicts happening in Act 1 also. Then, Act 2 is where the tension is really picking up. The conflicts are happening. Oh, should I get married to this Sharma ji ka ladka? Should I run away from my house? What should I do? How should I go about it? So this is when the conflicts are happening, and this will further, up the ante in resolution, because you have been able to overcome the obstacles of your parent house. You have been able to run away, but now a bigger obstacle waits you. Will you be able to crack the NASA interview? Will you be able to secure? Because if you are not able to do that, then everything will come back and you will probably have to return from where you started. So the challenge in the third act is even bigger. Probably you were good enough, or maybe even if you failed, in the second act, maybe you were not able to, give your level best, but then there is an opportunity. You get another chance to do it in the third act. But if you fail here, then it's all, it's all, you are back to square one. So that's why the payoff, it's called the payoff, it's called the resolution, it's called the climax. So I hope I've given you a basic idea of what it is all about. I've given you a basic idea of how do you see a film. So try visualizing the film in terms of the 3 acts. Whenever you watch a film, just see, okay, now it's beginning. Oh, this is the setup. Okay. Oh, now they are into the conflict mode. This is the second act. This is the confrontation. And then try visualizing it. Oh, now we are reaching the climax. Oh, but why did the film end after the climax? They're showing us something more. Do they want to set us up for the sequel? Or, oh, this is the winding down action, just like the composer does. He doesn't end it there. He will bring you down, to a more calm and a peaceful mood. So always have this graph in your mind. And, if you study films, deeper, further, the more sessions you will have in film appreciation, you will start to appreciate the 3 act structure. And then slowly you will also start breaking the 3 act structure, because, there's a whole world of cinema out there. And a lot of filmmakers don't believe in the 3 act structure. But let me tell you that they also started by learning the 3 act structure. Because if you want to break the 3 act structure, you must be thorough with what it is. Because otherwise, how would you break it if you don't know what the rule says? So I think we can take the questions now. I'm sure a lot of doubts and a lot of queries would be there.
Yes, sir, there are a few questions. One of our students, Akshita, wants to know how open-ended films stand in three act structure, especially the climax.
Mhm. Okay. So the thing is that this 3x structure is not, a Bible. It's not like a gospel that you have to follow it religiously. 3x structure is just a guideline. It's just an indicator. A lot of the Oscar-winning films, if you look at The Truman Show, if you look at The American Beauty, if you look at The Sixth Sense, if you look at Ex Machina, a lot of the recent, and if you look at the classic Hollywood films, if you look at our classic films, also some recent classics such as Kahani, they all follow the 3x structure. And 3x structure is basically the basic guideline. It basically tells you so that you don't get lost. When you're writing a story for a movie, you want it to be approved by the producers, you want it to be approved, you want people to back it up financially, because you are not making it for your friends. At the end of the day, commercial aspects also need to be taken into consideration. That's why you follow a 3x structure. That's why the 3x structure is there to guide you, to help you. And when a producer sees that, okay, you are following 3x structure, they also get a little bit, faith in you, that, okay, this girl knows her stuff. She has studied the art of screenwriting. If I put my money on her, if I back her project, then she will not, put me in ruin. I will not get bankrupt. So there's a greater trust, because obviously a lot of it is in the speculation space. With storytelling, you never know what will work, what will not work. But if it follows a 3x structure, then you get a little hope. And as far as the open ending films are concerned, the beauty about open ending films is that they can follow a 3x structure. They may not follow a 3x structure. As I said with Godard, you can also do a little bit of play with the linearity of the narrative. You can go for a non-linear approach. Probably you can start off with the ending, then go towards the beginning, and then again come towards the ending. But if you look at the chunks of the film, you would always see that, okay, there's a beginning, there's a middle, there is the end, but it may be reshuffled. The ending may be happening at first. You may start a film in the middle also, then you can go at the beginning, and then you can go towards the ending. So it's your creative choice. So in even in an open ending film, you may use the 3x structure, but sometimes you may not want to use a 3x structure. Take the case of Satyajit Ray's Pathar Panchali. He doesn't use the 3x structure because at that point in time, he had no idea about what it is like to make a film. He was experimenting. He was in a very experimental phase of his life, and for the first time, he was making something. So he kept on making, he kept on shooting, and kept on rewriting the script. Then he rewrote, he reshot, he rewrote, he shot, he rewrote. So a lot of things were happening, on the go. So if you look at Pathar Panchali, there is no structure, and it's an open-ending film, because there's a sequel after that. There is Aparajito after that, then Apu Sansar after that. So there's a sequel of that. So it doesn't end with Pathar Panchali. So it's an open-ended film in many ways. Say somebody doesn't see the next two films, if they just see Pathar Panchali, that itself it's a complete film, but it's an open-ended film, and it doesn't follow a 3x structure. There are films which follow 3x structure, but they are open-ended. So being open-ended doesn't affect the 3x structure. So it can an open-ended film can exist independently of the 3x structure. It can also coexist with the 3x structure. Again, creativity is what drives what you want to do. The 3x structure doesn't drive creativity. The creativity drives whether you want to follow the 3x structure. But when you are starting out, when you want to play safe, when there's a lot of money involved, it's always useful to follow the 3x structure, because then you will not get lost.
Thank you, sir. One of our students, Kishore Kumar, wants to ask, sometimes we see that editors put up some additional sound in the background for a moving vehicle or any object despite of knowing that it has its own sound. Why is that concept used in films, and where will we categorize that sound?
See, it all depends on what sound you are using. Say if that sound is, reflective of that particular vehicle. Say it's a sound of the moving tires, it's a sound of the engine, it's a sound of the click of the key. Then obviously it all will be diegetic sound. But if it's a background score, say in a movie like Fast and Furious, they'll use all kinds of sounds to dramatize it. So then obviously it will be non-diegetic sound. Again, it's to do with the creative choice that the filmmaker is making. And I really doubt if the editor has the authority to do it on his or on her. on his or her own. Ultimately, it's the filmmaker, the director of the film, who will decide whether this sound is needed or not. The editor can propose that, okay, what if I use this sound? Okay, I'm not using this sound. Because sometimes what happens in horror film, what you do, you don't have the sound of the ghost. Nobody has ever recorded the sound of how the ghost sounds. So what they use, they'll record, sound howls of, certain creatures in the night, lion, tiger, wild animals, and they'll mix it up. And they'll mix it up, these sounds. Especially another interesting thing that I want to mention you here, you would have seen movies, there's this stabbing sound, there's a serial killer film or a slasher film. So there's a sound of, knife entering the flesh. That is nothing, you capture it using a muskmelon. So you put the knife in the muskmelon and you record it. And you do it in different ways. Sometimes you do it like this, and then you will, mix it up. And it feels as if, oh, it's a stabbing sound. Somebody has been stabbed. When in actuality, it's the sound of the muskmelon. But since in the film, it is portrayed as the knife stabbing sound, so it will be diegetic sound only, even though the actual sound was captured using some other thing. But since in the movie, it's been portrayed as if it's an actual stabbing sound, so it will be a diegetic sound. But if it sounds like something else, maybe some dramatic music that I'm using, and that music is not being played there as part of the, part of the movie, then it's a non-diegetic sound. So the simple way to distinguish diegetic from non-diegetic is, if it's a part of the world, then it's diegetic. Whether it's the key sound, the ignition sound, whether it's the moving of the tires, whether it's the engine sound, whether it's the stabbing sound. And if there is something which has nothing to do with the movie or the world of the film, then that would be non-diegetic. I hope I have answered your question. It's a little complicated with diegetic and non-diegetic. So it all depends on how many movies you watch and how closely you examine. If you have any further queries, then you can reach out to me offline also.
Thank you, sir. We have a lot of more questions, but I think the time doesn't allow that much. I would now like to hand over the forum to Ms. Manmeet Kaur. Ma'am.
You can send these questions offline.
Oh, okay, sir. I'll send them to you.
Of course, sir. Thank you so much, sir. It was indeed a very interesting session. And I must say that three-act structure of cinema was something new, and it was very interesting. I'm sure that student definitely benefited from this session. Now I request Professor Dr. Susmita Bala, Head DME Media School, to please address the gathering and formally thanks our guest of the day. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Manmeet. Session बहुत अच्छा है, बहुत ही अच्छा लगा, इन फिल्म तो बहुत ही अच्छी लगी. So thanks, Mr. Murtaza Ali Khan, for such an impressive session on film appreciation. The way you explained how to break down a film was very interesting. It would have certainly given the students clarity about the structure of a film. The three-act structure, the setup, the confrontation, the resolution is something that gives a deep understanding about filmmaking and film viewing. Thank you, Murtaza ji, for explaining this all to our students. Thank you.
The pleasure is all, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And thank you so much, Murtaza sir. We are actually looking forward for more sessions from you in the future. Thank you so much for such an insightful session. And I would like to thank everyone, my students from DME Media School, Saxena sir, Bala ma'am, and my fellow colleagues, faculty members from DME Media School for joining in this session. The next session would be at 2 p.m. for the third semester students, and the session would be carried forward by RJ Divya Vasudeva. Stay tuned. And students of fifth semester, they can join the session at 3:30 p.m. for digital media marketing session. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining the session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being a great host. Bye.
In DME, we believe in engagement and empowerment of students. And since the time this COVID-19 struck in 2020, we intensified this whole process.
For the education sector, it was a big challenge. At DME, our small dynamic team decided to take this challenge head on.
We organize different kind of programs, different webinars wherein the distinguished people from the industry and other walks of life, they are invited to interact with the students. We try to keep them engaged in taking out newsletter, writing stories, editing stories, and not only that, they make posters, they make cartoons, they write pieces for the newsletter.
Mentoring cell at DME is a very unique feature in the ecosystem of education. While the subject teachers forge the knowledge domain strongly, it is the mentors who reach out to students in difficult times. During pandemic, when our students faced loss of their loved ones, home isolation, and several other family issues, mentors ensured that students remain cheerful, lively, and stay connected with us.
We have ensured that our students are treated with compassion, warmth, and gentle touch. And it has been our endeavor to treat all the academic activities of our students, which includes PSDA, internal assignment, and various other curricular activities accordingly.
Research cell also pays huge emphasis on interdisciplinary nature of research. In order to promote this, the research centers of the research cell were also motivated to join with each other and conduct research activities for students, faculties within DME and outside DME.
While the strong academics and great industry connect is building great lawyers, media persons, and managers at DME, we at Mentoring Cell are enabling these future leaders to be compassionate, emotionally strong, and resilient for any times to come.
We empower the students. All the schools of DME, they have their students' council. In DME Media School, this council is part. They organize the program themselves, they take their own decisions, and they mobilize the students for all the good cause.
Art has the power to unite and connect during the times of crisis. Bringing people together, sharing, soothing, and inspiring are powers of art, which have been made empathically obvious by the DME cultural societies during the COVID-19 pandemic. By taking different innovative approaches in organizing various virtual competitions and events in which the students of DME have taken part with great enthusiasm and proved that DMEians are unstoppable.
Care with compassion is motto of DME. During Corona period, we were always with our students. Their well-being is primary for us. We take care of our students.
We met the expectations of the students, of the parents, and above all, of the industry. The placements this year were better than those of the previous years. DME is committed to supporting its students in all possible ways.